Everyone knows that Ethernet is the best way to ensure a speedy and solid connection throughout your entire home, but sometimes that's not practical for a lot of people, whether it's due to economical reasons or if your house just isn't set up to run this stuff. Sure, you could use Wi-Fi, and while Wi-Fi has gotten a lot better in the last decade or so, there are just some certain applications that you're not going to use Wi-Fi for. I mean, are you gonna run your NAS off Wi-Fi? You are? Hold on. FBI? Yeah, we got them. But today, we're going to be taking a look at two devices that will let you run a hardwired connection throughout your entire home without running wires at all. Well, maybe. Now, if you have a house built sometime after 1882, then you probably have electrical wiring running through your house. And why does that matter? Well, that's because that's what we're going to be using to transmit an internet signal. This is the Nexus Link GPL2000 kit, which will let us transmit a network signal over our existing electrical wiring. And if that sounds like black magic to you, well, it kind of is, but maybe not really. I mean, I'm not smart enough to tell you exactly how it works, but at the end of the day, whether it's Ethernet cable or electrical wiring, it's just copper, right? This kit is $65 and comes with 2 nodes, and it's using their G.HN Wave 2 technology, which technically supports up to 16 nodes, so go crazy. Setup is relatively easy too. Simply take one of the units and plug it in near your router or network switch, wherever you have network going out, and then take the other unit and plug that in where you want to see a hardline connection. Note that the signal can vary depending on a few factors, like if both units are on the same breaker, if both units are on the same panel, and even if there's noise on the line between the units, especially induction stuff like motors and older microwaves. Once both units are plugged in and you have a network device connected to them, then you should see a network activity light indicating that it's working. But hold on one second. What if somebody takes one of these that they bought themselves, walks up to your house and plugs this into an outdoor outlet? Can they technically steal your internet? Well, with the current setup, yes, but there is a solution for that, and it's quite simple. You see, the only button on here is a link connection button, which will pair any devices that you have in your house and encrypt the data. Just hold this button for 3 seconds on your transmitting node, then go to your receiving nodes and then press the button there, and boom, they are linked and encrypted. Any bad guys with these just won't work. Cool, easy setup, but none of that matters if this thing doesn't even work. And according to the product page, we have a max of 2 gigabit per second on here, but after further reading a little bit in the description, you can see there's actually a max of 500 megabit per second over a single Ethernet cable. So I guess technically you can get 2 gigabit throughout your entire electrical system if you have 16 nodes, but to each individual unit, you are only going to get 500 megabits per second. So obviously I tested this, and yeah, I did not get anywhere near 500 megabits per second. Now, I wasn't on the same breaker, but I was on the same panel, and we were seeing speeds around 80 megabits per second, which honestly, over electrical wiring is pretty solid. But I did notice some download and a lot of upload latency when doing a speed test, so that was kind of concerning, but it didn't seem to really affect any browsing. And I even spun up a game of League of Legends and fully expecting to see really high pings, but honestly, they were about the same as if I was using my regular hardwired Cat 6 cable. Now, I wanted to see if I'd get a better experience if I connected both nodes on the same breaker, and I did. Honestly, double the speed and lower latency when doing the speed test. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. Now, personally, I actually have a use case for these. You see, outside my patio, I don't really have the space to run Cat 6 cable, so where my TV sits, there's no networking, and the Wi-Fi router is pretty far away, but there is an electrical outlet, although it is over an extension cable. So I plugged this in outside over an extension cable to see if there was any way this thing would work. And surprisingly, it got the exact same speeds that it did when I tested them over the exact same breaker. So I can't explain that, but pretty cool. So can I recommend this thing? Honestly, I was coming into this expecting to be like, yeah, don't buy this. Obviously it doesn't work, but shockingly, this thing works. Now, there are use cases for this. Like my use case where I have a TV that's outside of the range of Wi-Fi and not really accessible to run Cat6 cable, perfect use case for this. Similarly, if you have a basement or section of the house that's on the same electrical but doesn't have Cat6 cable, then yeah, go ahead and throw that in there if you want a hardwired connection to maybe browse the internet or play video games. But when should you not use this? Well, do not use this if you plan on connecting a bunch of devices. I know it's tempting to plug a switch into here and then plug a bunch of devices in, but remember, you are only getting 500 megabits per second through this Ethernet connection. And yeah, I wouldn't try to run a NAS or a home server on this thing. Now, can you do it? Yeah, you can do anything. It's not like if you plug it in, the Boogie Monster is going to come while you're sleeping. And I don't know, what does the Boogeyman do? But yeah, go ahead, try it out. Link in the description if you have a use case for this. But now remember, I said there were two options. And here's the other one. Very similarly, we are using existing cable in your house, but this time we are using coax. Coax looks like this. You guys know what I'm talking about. So if you have a house that was built relatively recently, you probably have coax running to each room. And this is for a dark time back in the day when we used TV set boxes. So this here is the Nexus Link GCA 2000. And like I said, it uses coax cable and essentially does the same thing. Lets us take existing wiring and turn that into a network connection. And boy, does this work a lot better than over electrical. The setup for this is relatively the same. Take one end, plug it in by your networking equipment, take the other one, plug it in where you want a hardwired connection, and boom, press the button, pair them, encrypted connection between both of them. Did I mention it's $90? If I didn't, it's $90. And oh yeah, these things work. I mean, look at those speeds. That is borderline just straight Ethernet. I mean, holy moly. However, there is a caveat. They do say that if you're still using your coax cable for a TV signal, then there might be interference and these may not work, but that shouldn't be a problem if you're under the age of 80. So with my setup, I took the transmit node and plugged that directly into a splitter, which then went to the rest of my house, and I was seeing the same exact speeds in every room. So very impressive. You can use a splitter, set up a bunch of nodes, you're good to go. Now, if you're wondering about distances, take a look at this really confusing chart and see if you can make more sense of it than I did, because my setup was probably about 50-foot run up to maybe max 100 feet, and I saw the same speeds between those, so take that for what it's worth. So do I recommend these? Absolutely. I mean, if you have the money and you don't want to run Cat6 cable throughout your house, then these are honestly really good. I mean, the latency was low, speeds were awesome, and if you can get a bunch of these on sale, it honestly is probably cheaper than running Cat6 cabling. Now, obviously, these options aren't going to be good as running Ethernet. I get that, but that wasn't the point of the video. The point was to see if there were alternatives to people who don't want to run Ethernet or can't. And I think we proved that both of these are pretty solid. Now, if you have existing coax runs, then I strongly recommend cutting Grandpa's cable package and going with these. But if you have a room in your house that doesn't have coax and only has electrical wiring running to it, go with these, but just make sure they are on the same panel. Now, going from a sub panel to a main panel is fine, but I mean, don't expect to tie this into your neighbor's house or anything. That wouldn't make sense. Another use case I failed to mention is that if you're in an apartment and don't want to, or you're not allowed to run Ethernet, then one of these may be awesome for you. But both of these are listed down in the description below. Let me know if you have a use case for them or if you're using something like this. I'd be curious to see what you guys are doing, but that is all I have for you guys today. If you like this video, drop a like below. If you like seeing content like this or looking at my bald head, then consider subscribing as it helps out a ton. I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and my Patreons. You guys are my electrical wiring that also carries networking to my heart. That was a bad one. You guys are awesome, but if you're still watching, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.